This video was sponsored by Squarespace. Websites, online stores, marketing tools, and analytics. It's got everything you need to build your online portfolio and get your business going. Stay tuned until the end of the video to find out more. Today on Spotlight, I bring you Miracle Mia, a game I actually have a bit of familiarity with. I want to say it was either a Too Many Games or a Momocon or Paxies. One of those three, just to narrow it down. One of the things that I like to do from time to time is like spend an entire portion of my day at a convention just hanging around like the indie showcase. During one particular run through, I run into a fan of the channel and he asks, "Would you mind coming down to our booth and try out our game?" The game in question was this one. It was Miracle Mia. I said, "Hey, you know what? Sure, why not?" It's pretty much the reason why I hang around this area, is to test out new things. Seems promising. I'd like to cover it a future time. And so I sat down and gave Miracle Mia a shot. And basically, to give you a very quick synopsis. So you're this girl named Mia, got a sister named Nia. One day, your hometown, I think the city in general, is getting ravaged by these weird looking creatures that the game later identifies as Geos. Basically, all these floating creatures with singular eyes and like to throw orbs at you. It's not a pretty sight. It's kind of annoying, actually. There's even some that like can stick you to the floor if you get hit by it. It's kind of gross. But like you're riding on a train one day, everything seems to be normal. Got a random ass tennis racket on the floor, a pink box, and your cat runs off. And then your shit goes to hell. Suddenly you find yourself jumping from like train car to train car. Like it's getting pretty bad out there. And then suddenly you find yourself with a magically infused tennis racket. It's exactly what it is, the tennis racket. And now you have a means to fight off the Geo menace. Whenever enemies fire projectiles at you, you just press a button, you swing your racket like a sword, but you can knock projectiles back at them. For added precision, you can also like hold down the trigger and aim this reticle. It's like Yoshi's Island when you're aiming eggs. And you can pretty much dictate where the swatted projectile will go. For a little added leniency, I did notice that the yellow orbs can home in on enemies if your aim is not quite precise enough, and which is great, because I think you have like over 8 directional aiming mode, which does a good enough job. But the game looking out for you just to make sure that you can actually hit something and get a move on is much appreciated anyway. So want to thank the developer for that. Speaking of, if Shademare is listening or watching this video, I'm sorry I was a little late on covering this game. I think Miracle Mia came out last year. I think it was either late last year or middle last year. I did want to cover this game as my show of appreciation in some form or fashion. Here you go. I hope this satiates your taste buds. But let's continue talking about Miracle Mia. I mean, the game as a whole is pretty simple. You get your magical tennis racket, but your sister Nia also has this floating cube that she sits on for pretty much the entire game. I think the cube itself is like some sort of like good-natured Geo. It has a singular eye. But I think like with the power of the cube, it allows Nia to shoot projectiles. Like she can shoot a singular projectile, which standalone I think doesn't damage anything at first, but it does stun certain things. And you can then either, whack it with the tennis racket, or you can shoot another projectile on a stunned enemy. And when that happens, it just straight up kills them. Sometimes you have to combine, like there are some enemies you have to stun first before you can neutralize them, or you have to use this combination attack where you press one button and, Mia and Nia combine their forces together for like a large swing, which does a lot by itself. Like I ended up using it a whole bunch because the range on it is pretty substantial, and it was overall just faster than just waiting for an enemy to shoot a ball at you and then just whack it back at them. A kooky way of dealing with enemies, but I will admit it was a little slow. Like sometimes I feel the game is too reliant on playing the waiting game, and it kind of goes against like the other part of the design of this game, because the game gives you pretty fast movement. Mia can dash on the ground, like double tapping either direction. You can later grapple onto hooks with the bumper, and that's pretty fast. Outside of combat and enemies, it's a pretty fast-paced game, and it gets even faster when you like upgrade your racket, or at least you get another racket. I think it is what it is. I think you get like 3 rackets total in the game, and the second one, I believe, gives you a new dress first off, and it allows you to do a dash with like the B button, which you can do in midair, which increases the speed of the game pretty substantially. You not only have a grappling maneuver that allows you to just zip across to the next hook, you also just have a midair dash, and that dash, you get a lot of mileage out of that shit. In fact, by the end of it, I was defeating bosses just by spamming that damn move because it was just much faster and it was in a way safer than just waiting out for projectiles and just smacking them back at enemies. If that was even a way to kill the boss, you know? I feel that for the most part, it was just better to do close quarter combat in a game where, you know, it's supposed to be about swinging your tennis racket and knocking projectiles back at the enemy. I feel that this game kind of falters between those two design elements. If I were to say that it was one of my biggest critiques, like gameplay wise. At the very least, things were like functional in the game. I can't recall a moment or time where I pressed a button and something didn't happen or something just broke, which you kind of have to expect when it comes to looking at indie stuff because not everything might have been checked out the last minute or something like that. But my experience was relatively stable. The presentation is simple. It's easy on the eyes, kind of gives off a Paper Mario aesthetic or maybe a Samurai Jack if I can pull from that one. I feel I'm not worthy to pull from now. I never watched Samurai Jack. I know Cardinal Sin. But you know, the lack of lines and all these shapes and yeah, everything just looks like it's made out of a paper construct. You know, which sets it apart, I feel, visually, but it also has some downsides to it. This game kind of struggles with identifying depth. You're looking at the first stage and the cliff sides that you can jump on, the shade of green on the cliffs themselves are just barely lighter than the grassy knolls in the background. Sometimes it's hard to tell where you can go or what you can jump on, and that is something I dealt with throughout the entire experience. The game took me about 3 hours to finish. I did play it from beginning to end. Because again, I wanted to show my appreciation to Shade Mare, just so that, you know, I wanted to see how far the game came along. But I have to admit that at points, it was pretty hard to tell where I was going. As early as the first stage, around the middle, I think it got a little better by the end of it. I know sometimes I had to stop for a second and squint, or at least just like blur my eyes and say, okay, what can I jump on here? Or can I just like jump in the air and dash through everything, you know? Because I ended up doing that a lot too. There was a point where when you get your third racket ability, which I think is just mirror mode, which at first I wasn't sure what it did. I feel that the game could have explained that power up better. And honestly, I still don't know exactly what it does besides like you press the button, the picture goes all inverted, and I think it like stops things temporarily. You get it in the ice stage. I remember it stating that it can temporarily stop the frigid weather because that's the gimmick of that stage where you have to keep warm by staying close to lanterns. And once you go out, you can't stay out too long. Otherwise, you just lose health and I guess you just lose a life. I never froze to death, so it's not really that big of a threat. But you get mirror mode before like the major boss encounter. And then it says, you press the button, something happens, and I think I can beat the boss now. I don't know, because I felt that I just defeated the bosses by doing normal tactics. And it wasn't until the next stage afterwards where I learned that, okay, mirror mode gives you, it freezes stuff temporarily for just maybe like a second or two. And then afterwards, your form is of this like super fast version of the character. Your dash is substantially greater. It's way faster. And after I got that mode, and once I understood that, a majority of my second half of this playthrough is just me dashing through everything because I felt I can get away with it. Yeah, I mean, you can attribute that to my reckless playstyle that I've gone over time and time again. But I felt it was a valid tactic just for the sake of getting the stage over and done with. Yeah, I have to say that by the second half of this game, there was a part of me that felt like I was dragging my feet a bit. The game is not very challenging, and it kind of peaks by the time you get the third racket. And then after that, you're not really given much more to do with your full move set. The sole exception, I want to say, is this one racket where, okay, I'm sorry, the mirror mode dash, I think is like your second racket. The third racket you get allows you to temporarily hover for a bit, which does lead to some more vertical-esque level design. And there are a couple of things that make you do with that, and that's fine. But for the most part, you're just going left to right and swinging your racket and knocking balls back at things. There are different enemy types, but most, if not all of them, are handled in a very similar manner that even in a 3-hour adventure gets kind of old. So again, by the later half of it, I just wanted to see when the game would end, which is generally a no-no for me because I like to have fun throughout the entire way. And again, the game is functional, but it needed more variation on what you can do combat-wise, or at least give you more of a challenge with, you know, having a tennis racket that could bounce things back besides, you know, just like orbs, like these multicolored orbs. But for a first outing, I have to say that it was not a bad attempt at all. Like, I didn't hate my time with this game. I thought it was perfectly enjoyable. But I also wasn't, like, wowed either. The game has voice acting, which I don't remember the prototype builds that I've experienced earlier having that. I think there might have been at least grunts or some form of capacity. Yeah, but for the most part, this game has full-out voice acting, so it's very ambitious for the presentation for an indie game. So that said, it kind of has the problem I have with, I think I might have mentioned this problem for, like, the Shantae Half Genie Hero and the Seven Sirens issue, where not every line of dialogue is voiced, like fully voiced. I think only like the really important cutscenes are fully voiced. But whenever a new sentence begins with a character, they'll just make a small quip just to like pinpoint who exactly is talking. And most of the time, it's just a character saying another character's name. Like Mia, Nia, Coco, Reina, Big Sis, Mimi, Nini, baseball. That is a substantial chunk of the dialogue exchanges when it is not fully voiced. And I hate to be that guy, but it got super fucking annoying. It got really fucking annoying. There is an option to lower the voice in the options menu if you're just not down for voice acting entirely. I feel I shouldn't have to do that, but after stage 3, there are 10 stages in this game, and after stage 3, I was like, oh Christ, oh man, these guys gotta shut up. The story itself it's okay. It kind of gets a little hard to follow because I know that you got these creatures, the Geos, as I mentioned earlier. They're causing a ruckus. You got to stop them. Your big sis gets kidnapped. There's also this girl named Reina that gets kidnapped. I think she's your cousin, and they're sent to, I think it was the Void. You have to find a way to save them while also finding a way to get rid of the Geos. You have this girl with a baseball bat, a girl with a spiked baseball bat named Ace. She'll help you out every once in a while. It has a very aloof personality. She doesn't look any younger than Mia, but, you know, still call like Nia a kid. And it's like, yeah, nothing personal, kid. He's like, you don't know what you're getting into. It's like, oh, Chris. Whatever. But fuck, man, I got a tennis racket and she gets a nailed baseball bat. I was like, I want a nailed baseball bat. I'm pretty sure that can knock projectiles out just as good, if not better. But you also have a lot of other secondary characters. It's the other girl named Coco. I think it's a relative or it just might be a teacher. She gets possessed at one point. You got to fight her. It's not that bad of a fight because it kind of just dashing everywhere. The game starts off with you getting hounded by this one other girl. I think her name was, I think it was Iza or Iza, Iza. You tell me the pronunciation of that because I even this game has voice acting. I'm already kind of forgetting how it was pronounced. She's hounding you and you're not entirely sure of her motives yet. But then you later find out about this one other girl named Odina, who was like a maiden from a long time ago who tried to like harness the power of the Void, and she's like built up as the bad guy. But you play the game and it's not so cut and dry. The Geos, their purpose, Odina's purpose, the Void itself, the true bad guy. It's not that I wasn't bored, it's just that, again, it was just kind of hard to follow. Like every chapter like ends and begins with like dialogue exchanges. Sometimes characters will exchange things in the middle of a stage, which is kind of hard to follow because, you know, you can't exactly like read the text as you're like trying to bat shit away. That's more of a personal thing though, so I might be the minority on that. There's a clear visual progression. I will give the game that, where things are clearly getting crazier as you continue playing the game. And at some point or another, you fight Odina herself, then you fight Isa. Well, then you have to help her to rescue. She has her own motives where I think her ultimate goal is to rescue her sister, which I think is Ozzy, like AZI, because she was in the void, taken over by the Geos at some point, and like she made like a pact with Odina or the Geos to get them in this world, all that she can have an opportunity to like rescue her sister. And I think at one point the characters say, why didn't you just tell the maidens that? I'm pretty sure they would have helped you get your sister. And she's like, they wouldn't believe me. And I was like, that's fucking weak. You don't know until you ask. I'm pretty sure there's like some nuance or subtext I'm missing there. But again, it's because the story didn't exactly grab me. Maybe it was because of the voice acting thing that I mentioned earlier, or I felt the presentation was just a little too simple for the kind of story they wanted to tell for this one. But I just kind of clocked out by the middle of it. All I know is that you do indeed rescue like the sister at some point. So everybody, for the most part, gets a happy ending here. This is a game that I feel, if it should get a sequel, that could be a very promising title, because I feel this definitely feels like the first game of a series, if that's Shademare's intention. And for a first attempt, at least as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure if Shademare made any other games or this is their first game. It's not bad, but I also feel it needs a lot of work. And obviously, you can't do anything about the game as it is now. It's already out. But like for future reference, I feel if you're going to take something whimsy as give the girl a tennis racket, let her like smack projectiles back at enemies. I like that idea. It's a very video gamey mechanic that could be a selling point, but everything else wrapped around that doesn't quite match that level. And if you're going to continue the art style, there needs to be more depth. Like, again, pretty hard to tell where I'm going at times because everything is like flat colors. There's rarely any shadows. The lighting is, everything's bright. That needs work. Definitely something for next time. And Shademare, again, if you're listening to this, like, again, I was happy to play the game a couple of years back and give you some feedback. And I'm happy that this is like officially released, because I know you working hard on that for some time. And I have to say that as far as the final product goes, it could be better, yes. But I'm happy you got it out anyway, because now you can expose it to a lot of folks at once. You can learn what works, what doesn't work. And I hope that whatever you decide to work on for next time, you take all of that feedback to heart and produce something that would just knocks it out of the park, like Ace of the spiked baseball bat. But I'm going to call it a wrap here. I don't want another 30-minute long spotlight. And as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I've been enjoying the feedback so far for the Retool Spotlights. I'm glad that I'm finally able to have a format that I can stick with. The post-commentary, no real script written thoughts given to the games that I've spent some time in. I know I've released a lot of these in the course of 2 weeks. Mostly as a means to, like, again, get this sub-series running, but also as a means to, give the channel some content as I'm getting ready to go back into the versus scene with my next few major videos, as August is looking to be a pretty busy year. Okay, yeah, August is now a year. A pretty busy month. I appreciate you guys giving the videos a click. Thank you for your time of the day. That said, before I do wrap it up for today, I do want to say thank you for today's sponsor, Squarespace. Take it away, live action me. As I stated before, my friend Ben and I have been doing these 24-hour gaming marathons, all to raise money for Extra Life and the Children's Miracle Network for close to 6 years, I want to say. Extra Life itself has a fine enough donation page, and reading your donation comments always fills me with a warm, cozy feeling. But I wanted something a little more personal, something that can show you the schedule, potential raffle prizes, a little history about us. Ben and I doing stupid things, all that stuff. I can do all that now thanks to Squarespace. The site's still under construction, and given my current schedule, I don't plan on having it done until the end of the summer, when we're ready to make the official announcement. But the user interface and the assistant on the right side of the screen made creating the site incredibly comfortable, and that's why I like it. I am dumb as a brick in creating websites. How I still think GeoCities and Angel Fire memes are still relevant. Well, I need my hand held for these kind of things, and a simple website like this is well within the realms of what you can do, but there's much more here for those looking to get started on their business. Appointment scheduling if you're doing online classes, traffic overview to give you insight you need for channel growth, complete commenting features to keep in touch with your community and see what they like and what they don't like, and you also have extensions that can help you manage your inventory, promote products, streamlining bookkeeping, and ship items across the world. If you're an up-and-coming artist trying to start somewhere, here you go. You can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're good to launch, go to squarespace.com/Johnny and use the code Johnny to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Give yourself that professional look to make your website or business pop. If you're interested in catching other spotlights, you can follow the end links here. And if you have any recommendations, feel free to leave a comment below in the video or recommend something to me on Twitter at Somecallmejohn. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go out, and do take care of yourselves.